Good evening, everybody. Welcome to week 4 of Advanced Programming with Java here at Portland State University. So this is like the midway point, right? 4 out of 8 weeks. So yeah, the fun's starting finally. No. So we got some interesting stuff to cover tonight. Like I gave you a heads up in Slack. Thank you for coming and being here in person. I think this one especially will be worth your while because we're going to go over Project 4, which is different than Projects 1 through 3. We're also going to do another code kata and some more pair programming. But first, let's start off with Prime Minister's question. So it's been another week. Lots of stuff going on Slack. What can I tell you? What questions do you still have? What observations do you have about doing your Project 2, about getting feedback on your Project 1, and hopefully starting on your Project 3? Yes?
So the grading from the graders has seemed a little pedantic, I guess. I don't know, I didn't get feedback back on my Project 1 it was 4.9, I think you told them to do below 5, but so I didn't get that, but that's not a question. But the quiz 1 also seemed like it was for example, there was an interface question, and I was like, oh yeah, it's good for kind of simulating multiple inheritance or something, and the grader was you should have said that you can have multiple interfaces so that you can, and so it's
nuance matters to the graders, okay. I guess. But feel free to reach out to them, reach out to me, and get the clarification. So, the idea of the feedback is to help you learn. It's not to slap your wrist. It's not to say, hey, listen, you didn't do it. So if there's something that you don't understand, or if you think, listen, I thought I understood that, and I thought I explained it, well, please raise it up. It's in your own best interest, not only from your grade, of course that's important, but also what's more important to me is your understanding, making sure that you do have the concepts right, and that you're learning what I hope you learn. Yep, so feel free to continue the conversation. Project 2, how did it go? Yeah, okay, some thumbs up, people figuring it out.
Easier than 1.
Easier than 1, how so? Why was Project 2 easier than Project 1?
Because I had a place to start.
Ah, okay. Yep.
Simply that. That was basically it.
So Project 2 builds on Project 1. What was your experience sort of evolving your code a little bit more? Did you find there were places oh, wow, I totally screwed up in Project 1 and do a lot of stuff. Oh, let's get some nods there. Interesting. What were some of the things that, if you could go back in time a week and a half, you could tell your younger self?
I would have built a lot more utility functions for the parsing of the command line.
Yeah.
So that I could just reuse them.
Okay.
Doing that anyways.
Yeah, so a lot of refactoring in terms of, oh yeah, look, the parsing the command line, different places. Factor that out. Yeah, go ahead.
Just putting everything in try catch block.
Ah, okay.
To begin with.
Yep. Ooh, mood lighting. Seriously? Did someone turn off the lights? The light, we just lose the lights on the side of the room? No? Nothing like that? Okay. That's messed up. Okay. This is that old building, right? They haven't refurbished this one in the last half century. Okay, this is good. Yeah. Here. Maybe too many people have their laptops plugged in or something, and it's okay. Okay, so utility classes for parsing the command line, try catches all over the place. What are some of the other learnings that you had doing Project 2?
I redid the entire way I managed the option flags from Project 1. I did it kind of the lazy, just check all the different, just sort of an if-else for everything.
Yep.
And instead I did a switch case that set Boolean flags, and then I checked for just kind of those, and it makes it a lot smoother.
Nice. Yep. What are some of the other approaches that people took to parsing their command line?
I originally just looked for anything that had a dash before it, and then now I realize that was done because now text file is 2 separate arguments.
Oh, okay. Yep. So I had to evolve a little bit to handle option that has an argument to it follows. Yep.
I noticed that how I ordered things kind of made logic a little simpler. If I put the readme option first, that had the most cases, and it made it so the following options require less logic to be able to if there's a readme option, then it in the first 4 or 3 argument positions, then it wouldn't have to print or do the text files.
Cool. Okay. How do people find working with the Java.io libraries, the file APIs? Are like, yeah, okay. Any questions? Yeah.
I think the big one was just figuring out which one I wanted to use.
What were some of the ones that you looked at? So what were some of the classes? Do you remember the ones that you considered?
I tried just reader and writer at first,
Mm-hmm.
and then I realized that was awful.
What was awful about it?
Because I think they only read in bytes. At the time.
Okay.
So reading in strings is not really, it just wasn't very useful.
Okay.
Or it was going to be a tedious process to parse. So.
Cool. So what classes did people end up using that were useful and helpful? File writer. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
File output stream.
File output stream. Oh, okay. So what's the difference between file writer and file output stream? Remember? This is actually a pretty important distinction, so it might even be on a quiz or exam someday. I don't know. So if you haven't, I would strongly encourage you to review the lecture all about I/O. And the reason that's important is because the I/O classes are not only important for projects 2 and 3 when you're dealing with a text file or you're dealing with text being written out, but they're also important for project 4 when you're sending bytes back and forth between a client and a server. Yeah?
That's what I was going to say. The output stream, I think, outputs bytes the file, and the other one does characters.
Right. So output streams and all this ascendance like binary output stream, file output stream, and everything like that deal with bytes. So it's an API that's all about bytes. So you're sending binary data. Now, of course, text can be encoded as binary data, but the output stream doesn't care. The input stream doesn't care. Where the readers and writers were added like in the next version of the API, and they are meant to deal with text because we manipulate text all the time. And certainly, as we'll see tonight, protocols like HTTP are based on text. And so even though you're writing it over a network socket, you still want to have APIs that are text-based because a lot of data transmission is text. Cool. What else on Project 2? Anything else on Project 2 is interesting? Yeah. Project 3. So you're adding the pretty print stuff. Any questions that I can answer now about Project 3? Do want to remind you all that there is a Project 3 channel on Slack. Unfortunately, I can't invite everybody to a channel, which is unfortunate. So then I just have to tell you about it in forums like this. And I guess when I create the Project 4 one, which I'll do when I start talking about Project 4, I'll post something to general. Hopefully more people will see it that way. Yeah, Project 3.
Yeah, for the pretty flag option, what's the syntax for that? It says pretty print the appointment book to a text file or standard out, and it says file dash, but I'm not sure what that is.
So you say dash pretty dash print write to standard out. If you say dash pretty really anything else, then anything else is the name of that file. And so one of the interesting things I encourage you to think about in the assignment is how you can structure your code in such a way that it's not awkward to decide whether you print to standard out or to a file.
So dash pretty dash would be to standard out?
Yep. Yeah. And that's an old Unix convention to have like wget-o dash and then lots of other things that predated that escaped me at the time. And in terms of your command line parsing, you've got yet another option. And so then, if you're already feeling that your logic's a little hairy, you might need to rethink how you're parsing the command line or the approach that you're taking so that you can handle more options. Yeah, there's more coming there. Okay. Let's see, it's due next week. Anything else on that one? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering,
Yeah.
when we do the date format dot short, that doesn't actually print the time, right?
It ought to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So maybe mine's just doing something wrong.
Well, if you go, and this is covered in the lecture notes, there is, let's see here, on, it's escaping me now. Yeah, there's a static method on date format called like get date format or something. You also get date format and get date time format. And then you give it the constants for the like date format dot short. And so you probably want the 2-argument version, which is like get date time format or something.
Okay, I'll check it out.
It's called get date time instance.
Instance.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Also, the simple date format has a dot format, and you can put in the exact format within as like a format string within the simple date format, and then it'll format a date object for you. I just put it on the thread. I think that
Sweet.
you asked on Slack. It's like you just like do like return new simple date format string dot format date object, and it'll just like do it.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it said you have to use date format dot short. Does that mean that we have to use specifically that, or just the same format as what that is?
Well, I'm not going to look at your code, so I suppose I couldn't tell, but might as well use the shortcut. And actually, the nice thing about the constant, not that I'm going to test it this way, the reason they have these constants is because these are localized formats. And so then if you go and run your program in a different locale, like in a European locale, like French locale or something like that, it'll format the date the way people in France are used to seeing it. Where if you're like, if you have like like if you use a simple date format and then use the 2-digit month and the 2-digit year and all that kind of stuff, that'll look the same regardless of the locale. Yeah.
Oh, feedback just for the grading.
Yeah.
It might be what you get the format of the email we get in a different way because it comes through as spam.
Okay. I wonder why it comes through.
Maybe
It's because it's a bunch of
Probably because, well, I did an X reply header. So one of the things I added last week, so here's a problem I've had in the past. I don't actually look at the grader's email account very often. And so what used to happen is that people would reply directly to the email the SJavaTA grader account. Oh, which actually is a Gmail account. That may be why it's marking it as spam. Yeah. It's coming from a PSU machine. It's coming from I don't have a PSU grader account anymore. Maybe I should. Oh, no, I tried to get one, and there was like all this bureaucracy I had to go through because it's like, why do you need 2 email accounts? I'm like, because computer science. Because, okay, fine. It's like I can create multiple Gmail accounts. So that's probably why it's being marked as spam. That's not cool, is it? I don't know that's been as much of a problem in the past. So I guess check your spam folder. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like a million years ago, I used to actually have like a SJava TA at CS to PDX to EDU account, but that went away when PSU went to Gmail. I don't know how to get around that. Sorry to think about it.
Can you make an alias for your own PDX Gmail?
Well, not on a PDX.edu machine. That's probably what it's complaining about. Is it's coming from, it gets the mail from Babbage or wherever I'm running from, but it's saying, oh wait, it's saying that it's coming it's coming from. Oh, I wonder. Maybe I could use something fake. I could use a fake email address. I don't know. That might also be weird. Because then if you do reply to it, it's going to bounce, and that'll be confusing. And I mean, no offense, but I don't want to run your assignments under my account because I mean they're going to look at your code. You can do all sorts of bad and malicious things, and even though I sandbox it, I still hey, if you want to mess up the grader's account, okay, fine, but I don't want your code running on my account. So yeah, I don't know what to do about that. If you have any good ideas, let me know. I don't know if there's like the right way to do this. Probably the right way would be to get me some sort of SJavaTA PDX.edu account. Okay. Anything else in the projects? Cones! How are the cones coming? Due next week? Yeah, so between Project 3 and the cones, there's your midterm for you. And you got a lot of work. hope you're finishing those up. From what students have told me in the past, they do get harder as you get into them. Is that true? Are people finding that?
Yes.
They're getting more challenging as you go? Okay. Yeah, so not so much like, what does addition do? It's more like, oh, look, here's a bunch of crazy overloaded stuff and lambdas and Java 8 and everything. So, be sure to keep on top of that. And just what I recommend is just a little bit each day until you're done. Nice. Yeah.
For some reason, like, sometimes it resets my progress, like it deletes everything.
What?
Yeah, like IntelliJ kind of unlinks Gradle or something, and like when I try to redo it, it says I have 0. I don't know, like,
And wait, well, do you actually lose like your changes in your .java in the source code, or just like?
.java, so I have to like get it back from GitHub every time.
Oh wow,
It's really annoying. I don't know.
does sound really. Anybody else seeing that?
Yeah.
What platform are you? Are you running on Windows? Or are you running on
iOS.
on Mac OS? Huh. I don't ever remember hearing about that. Now, I mean, the Cones do some kind of fancy footwork in order to be able to compile the code behind behind the scenes and then run it and all. But it's usually pretty good about it. And the fact that it's overwriting your .java files, that's weird.
Yeah.
So.
I was just kind of frustrated.
Yeah, that does sound very frustrating. Well, good for using GitHub, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons that I recommend it is because in case something goes wrong or something goes weird, you've got a backup. But yeah, that's it's very annoying. Sorry. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Okay, let's dive into Project 4. Projects 1, 2, and 3, you're writing a command line application. Your program starts at the beginning of your main method. It does all the stuff. It exits somewhere along the way. This is a pretty straightforward program, and probably the same kinds of programs you've been writing since your first CS class, right? Starts here, ends there, nothing too complex. Project 4 represents a leap in complexity, in that now you have two processes to work with. You have your process, which is your command line argument. It will still be a command line program in Project 4, but there's also a web server that's running. That server has something called a REST API. So this is all in the lecture, so I'm not going to go into too much about what REST is, but it's basically a web application that serves up data via URL. So you're not writing HTML. It's not like a visual web application. Instead, what it is it's a web service that lets you manipulate data via HTTP. Are you all familiar with what a web service is? Some people, well, if you're not, this is your big opportunity. So lots of background information in the slides and everything like that. What I'm going to do tonight, and this is what I've done in the past, is I'm going to introduce the project to you. I'm going to show you how to work with the source code. So what I hope you can do, especially those of you who have your laptops and want to play along at home, is sort of get the environment working and show you you can do stuff. But history has shown is that when I introduce it in week 4, you're still thinking about Project 3. You'll have to sort of put all this aside for a few more days while you finish up Project 3, and then you can come back to it. However, if I wait until next week, it would be too late. So I do it now. So I think so put your Project 3 aside and out of your mind. You can always come back to the simple date formats and all that kind of stuff, because now we're doing REST, we're doing HTTP. So in Project 4, you're going to take your appointment book application and split it in two. You're going to have the command line argument, but instead of working with text files there locally, it's going to work with a REST web service. And the whole idea is that here I want to show you how you can write web applications in Java, and then how you can have multi-process communication using HTTP. So there is so Java has a standard for writing web applications, and the thing at the heart of the web application is then called a servlet. And so this is an object that lives inside a Java virtual machine, and what it does is it responds to HTTP requests. What is HTTP? You've been typing in that URL bar for years. What does it mean? What is it?
Hypertext transfer protocol.
Right, the hypertext transfer protocol. What the hell's that? What's hypertext?
It's like a text link that you can click on and it will take you somewhere.
Yeah. So you remember when you guys were like born and there was this thing called the internet? This is what the internet was originally, right? It was data, text, but hypertext was the 90s. That was cool, right? You know, everybody had like neon and had their hat on backwards, but riding skateboards. You know, if you weren't, yeah, anyway. I suppose if you remember it, you weren't really there. No. So hypertext, the whole idea is that what was out there on the internet was all this text, all this information, you know, academic papers and stuff published in Switzerland and all that kind of stuff. But wow, you could link to other things. So now you had your bibliography, and you just click on this link, and poof, there's another academic paper from some physicist on the other side of the world. And this was like really amazing in 1994, and that sort of formed the foundation of the World Wide Web, of the internet, and everything that we use today. The technology or the communication protocol that underlies all that is HTTP. HTTP is a pretty simple protocol, all things considered. That's text-based. What's communicated is text, and what you do is you use a URL and you interact with that URL. So that URL is the thing you put into your web browser. It basically is a location, is an address out there on the internet, right? It's got a host name, it's got a port. If your web server is running on a non-default port, and then it's got an address at that server, right? And so and that identifies that URL identifies a resource out there on the internet, and you can interact with that resource via a series of what are called verbs in HTTP. So you can do things with that resource. You can get that resource, which says, hey, internet, go find this resource and give it to me. Right, go download this image, go download this text file. You can post to it. Post is a verb that sends data up to that resource. So it's like, hey, hey, resource, I'm going to deliver you this package, and then you're going to tell me something in return. Right? So this is how you provide data to that resource, and then it'll take that data and crunch it back, et cetera, et cetera. And what you're going to do in this assignment is you're going to implement some of these URLs, that some of these resources out there that respond to the HTTP verbs like get and post. The way you do this is in something called a servlet, and I'll show you all this code later on in class. But the whole idea is that you have a servlet that supports a couple of URLs. So you're going to run your web application that provides one of these URLs. You're going to run it on some host and port, localhost because you're running it on your local machine. When you say /appointment, /appointment/appointments, /owner name, that will return an appointment book. So instead of like a file path, instead you've got a URL for your appointment book. When you send it a GET, it returns all the appointments in the appointment book with the given owner name. If you send a POST to that, that'll create a new appointment book from the parameters that are passed in with the HTTP request. Name of those parameters are the same kind of things in your command line. Owner description, begin time, end time. And it should create a new appointment book when it doesn't already exist. So it's the same kinds of things that you do with your projects 1, 2, and 3. But now you're using a web server to store the information, to format the information, and send it back to you. So those are the same kind of functionality that you have already implemented. And now there's a new piece of functionality that I want to implement for Project 4. And that's the ability to query appointments inside an appointment book. So this is something that hasn't been implemented yet on your command line. That'll be new in Project 4. So if you do a GET of a URL that has the query string, you give it the owner, and you give it the begin time and the end time, it will return all of the appointments in that between the start time and begin time and end time, and then you'll print that out in your command line, as we'll see. Also, another new requirement. A couple people asked about whether or not they can store multiple owners of multiple appointment books in a file. In the file, no, you can only have one appointment book per file. But this is the web, right? This is like file 2.0. Now, and in here, you have to support multiple appointments. And so then if you change the owner name, it's not an error. Instead, you just create another appointment book for that owner. So some new requirements here. So that's one of the things that makes Project 4 interesting and challenging, is that not only are you sort of dealing in a brand new world of, you got clients and servers and stuff, but now there's some new functionality you need to implement also. So one part of the assignment is sort of the brains, the back end of all of your appointment book applications. So all the processing, the ability to create appointment books, keep track of all of that stuff. Then there's the front end, the user interface, the command line tool, right? And the command line tool, yep, it's command line. We've seen that before, and it's got arguments and options, just like your projects 1, 2, and 3 did. So it's the same arguments: owner, description, begin time, and end time. But now there's some additional options that you need to put. You need to specify the host and the port that you're going to connect to then access those URLs. You've got print and -readme. Now you've got a new parameter though called search. And that prints and that will do the query that will search for appointments between the begin time and end time. And by the way, when you say -search, you don't provide the owner and description. Here are some examples. So when you run the appointment book jar with, well, the same old kind of arguments that we're used to, but now you just say host and port. By the way, do you know what localhost means?
It means you're spinning up a server from your own machine.
It means you're, in this case, the client, but yeah, you are connecting to your local machine, right? So localhost is just a well-known, predefined name for the local machine, right? Everybody's machine, well, or at least if you're on DNS, will have a name associated with it. But if you use localhost, it always loops back to the machine that you're on. So to add an appointment to the server, you can have this command line. If you want to search between 2 times, you have the search command, and then all you do is you have the dates, so you don't need the owner and description. And if you want to print all of the appointments in the appointment book, you just provide the name of the owner. You don't provide anything else. So the command line parsing is also a little different. You've got some more situations. You have different error checking because it's changed. But by Project 4, you should all be experts at parsing the command line. Or at least you'll all be sick of parsing the command line.
Given any other host other than localhost, should it
Well, that'll work.
error?
Nope.
It'll just try and fail.
It'll unless I'm running one on there, right? I don't test that, but hey, if you really want to, you can start one up on one of the PSU machines and say, look, I'm doing distributed programming, all right, whatever. Yeah. Error handling. So the usual stuff like the command line format or syntax is wrong. It should also be an error if you can't establish a connection to the server, or if you pass data to the REST URL that is not correctly formatted. So this is one of the interesting things about this assignment, is that you've really got multiple entry points into your application. One is from the command line, but then the other one is also through the URLs, through the web server. I want to pause here. So, brave new world. Any questions before we start digging into how to build the project? Yeah.
So with the search function, are we searching on both an owner and a datetime?
Yeah, do I not have that in an example?
So it's all appointments that begin on...
Oh yeah, all in, yeah, and so it's the owner's appointment book, and then you find all of the appointments in that date range.
So if we don't specify an owner, that's not a valid search?
Correct, yeah, so I don't, there is no cross-appointment book search. Yep, good call.
Sorry if I misheard you.
I spoke fast.
I didn't quite understand, but so where are the appointments still being stored in a text? Or where are they being stored?
No, they're stored in the cloud. No, in the web server.
So we just send it there and trust that it's there?
It stays there, yeah, as long as it doesn't crash.
Okay.
So don't call system.exit in your web server.
All right, cool.
So So we're just supposed to have our server running forever?
You launch your web server, and right, this is the thing, and my students tell me that, wow, this is really different from what I'm used to, right? You used to, like, I run a program, it does something, and then it exits. Well, the web server, you start it, and it stays up, and you do lots of things. It's a long-lived process, and this is probably different from what you're used to. So we'll see, right? You launch your web application. You do a whole bunch of stuff with it. The command line program is going to come and go. You're going to start it up. It's going to do something. It's going to print something out. It's going to exit. You do that a bunch of times, but your web server stays there for until you're done with it. So it'll stay there through multiple interactions with the command line tool. Yep.
I'm also a little confused about this pre-printing thing. For one, your example has target/phonebow.jar.
Oh yeah, that's just so I have 3 versions of the assignments, and yep, that is a typo. Could you like IM me that or something like that? Oh yeah, go back and do a whole other. No, sorry, that's just a typo.
But also, so
I need to have a target up here, I suppose, but hopefully you know the drill by now.
Okay, if a user wants to pre-print their appointments in an appointments book, all they have to do is put localhost and port in their name and no other command, like the owner name, no other command line arguments. And
Yes. Yep. So it's different from Project 3.
But they didn't select the pretty flag.
Right.
Okay.
So that's a good point. That's different from there. There's no pretty flag anymore. Because why? Because there's no good reason why. Because we're done with files. Files are so Project 3.
So is there no text file?
That's right.
Okay.
So yeah, all that work you put in a text file, that was great. That's fine. Yeah, and I've been there, done that. Because you don't need to, right? Everything is stored in the web server. Now it also means that because it's never written out to disk, the web server goes away, all your appointments go away. So again, don't call system.exe on the server side. Yeah.
And I can't remember last time, but I think you said project 2 and 3. It wasn't like a /create project, but you said you did for I think 4 and 5.
5 more minutes and we'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah. No, good. Yeah, you're getting ahead of me because the next thing we'll see is the source code, and the source code is different than what you're used to seeing.
But to add on to that, we're just not going to have a pre-print flag. It'll just be something that's done.
Well, that's all it does, right? I mean, there's when you search, what's spat back out is the pretty format. Yep.
For someone who moves from computer to computer, there's no portability because we're all dealing with a local machine.
No, I mean there's portability. I mean localhost is just wherever you're at, and so then now the source code moves from computer to computer, right? I mean I'll still test this on the PSU machines. You'll still develop it on your laptops, right? And so then if you're moving between multiple machines, you move the source code between multiple machines. But you can still run the client and the server on the same machine and just talk to each other via localhost.
But
that make sense?
The host is a local machine, right? So if I do want to test my code on the PSU computer, then I have to build that database back up.
Every machine is like local IP is the same. It's like 127 points.
It's the loopback address. Yeah. 127.0.0,
so
which
it
is.
doesn't matter if you're on it. It's going to use the same. It'll have its own local host that it'll just build it up.
That's why I have to build it up.
Yeah.
Yes. So right. So the you start you'll start the web application. You'll start the web container, Jetty, and you'll interact with it. And all the stuff lives as Java objects in memory. You'll be building up your appointment books there. And just like any other program, once the program exits, then all the memory is returned. And so your data is gone. So you can't move that image between machines. But that's okay, right? I mean, how I'm going to test it is I'm going to build everything, start up your web server, do a whole bunch of stuff with it, make sure that the right stuff happened, or the stuff I expected happened, and then shut it down eventually. Yeah.
This is too detailed, but I'm just asking it later. But if you throw an exception inside the server, does it bubble all the way up to your client, or does it crash the server?
You don't catch it in the server.
Okay, very good question. So for those of you listening at home, so the question was, okay, hey, I'm doing Java stuff, and you've already told me I can't call system.exit, but what happens there is an exception. That's a very good question. So the way this works, and this is all covered in the lecture, is that, okay, the HTTP request comes in, is routed to your servlet. Your servlet will handle it, and if there's an exception, you get an all pointer exception, or you get some, invalid parameter exception. If you don't catch it, then it's up to the container. What Jenny will do then is like return a 500 page, right? You guys have probably seen this on the web, right? 500 error code, which means that there was an internal server error, and that gets propagated that way. You shouldn't do that. Just like in your command line, you should catch the exception and provide a better error message to your to the client. The client in this case is whatever is making the HTTP request, and so then. Sorry, where was I going with that? So then, catch the exception, and then in the response, say, okay, I suppose you could do a 500, but if it's something like, if someone requested, to pretty print a non-existent appointment book, for instance, that could be like a 404. It's like I don't know what that is, and that's why they have the HTTP, status codes. It's all covered in the lecture. We'll see a little bit of it tonight.
In the HTTP response.
Yes, in the HTTP response, yep. And we'll see how all that works with the Java API in a few minutes. Okay? Nice. Fasten your seatbelts. We're about to look at some code. Okay. So, there is a Maven archetype and stuff. Let's go look at the code. Okay. It's a new week. The first thing that we always do is we pull down the changes. Oops. Git pull upstream master, and there's stuff to merge in. That's good to know. And look, it created. There is a new shell script. Create project for .sh. Create project for .sh. Which I don't think I made it. Oh, I did. Okay. So there is a Maven archetype that creates a new project. So for project 4, you need to start over and create a new Maven project. So for projects 2 and 3, you can just evolve the same, evolve project 1. Project 4 is different, and we'll see why. It's got a bunch more stuff, so we're going to start over with a new project. So I run that, and it creates a new a directory called appointment web. So let's go into that. And let's see here, you guys got chmod plus h, the Maven wrapper. So let's use the Maven wrapper again, and do the clean and the verify. So, remember we create project 1, and what you've been working with 1 and 2 and 3 is you've got your program, and there's some unit tests, there's some integration tests. And the unit tests test your code. And they do unit testy things. They create objects. They interact with the objects. The integration tests, they deal with your command line, right? And so you're integrating multiple classes by working through the command line. In project 4, you still have unit tests, and unit tests interact with your servlet. We'll see how they mock out some things, so you can work with it more easily. But they also have integration tests. These integration tests are kind of like big kid integration tests. In that, what these integration tests do is they start up your web server, they deploy the web application to it, and then they hit those REST APIs, the REST URLs. And so this is they run a little bit longer, but they also test a whole heck of a lot more. And what they allow you to do is to automatically verify through automated integration tests that your web server is doing what it's supposed to do when it's running inside a web container. But you've still got your friends Maven. You got all the stuff that Maven Verify gives you. So I'm going to do a Maven clean again, and then I'm just going to commit some stuff. I'm just going to do it from here. as you can see, there's a bunch more source code, and we'll go through all of this stuff shortly. Yeah, it's all good. Okay. Added source code for project 4. Oops, I spelled it wrong, but whatever. Git push.
Did I miss something? Are you supposed to do? I'm getting a bunch of errors when I do Maven Clean Verify.
Did you delete anything? Did you delete leap years? Or is there any, did you delete anything that's in the modules section of your pom.xml at the top level? I was just getting that because I deleted the leap year back, the folder that we created.
What error is it giving you?
Pom at the top directory and then removed it from the folder, it'll be mad at you.
I just ran your shell script and then I ran verify.
You need to put your ID in as well.
Yeah, it did that. The top error is coming from appointment book rest client.java error method get in client HTTP request helper cannot be applied to given types.
That's what I got. That's what I got.
Yeah, I can't even create the project for it.
Okay. So of course it works on my machine, because I'm the one that builds the source code on my machine. Okay, so I'm guessing then, so thank you, that's good. So what that indicates, so a couple weeks ago, I to prepare for this, I did some refactoring, I changed one of the signatures, and so I think what you're seeing is that one of your, you've got an older jar than I do, and that could be, and that's probably my fault or something that I need to update. Huh, I thought for sure oh, maybe not, okay. Yeah, so here again, I'm running everything for the top level. Here again, it works for me. So, fun lesson about working with Maven. Sometimes your local Maven repository gets out of date. Okay, so if you might recall from the Maven lecture, the way Maven works is that it goes out and downloads a whole heck of a lot of jar files, something called your local Maven repository. And this is good because then every time you build, you don't need to go re-download them every time. So what I recommend that you do is you blow away all of the artifacts associated with this class, because I'm guessing that some of you have an older, out-of-date artifact, either that or I didn't publish a new one, which would be embarrassing, but it'll be the first time it happens. So we'll try that. And then what I'll do is I'll try rebuilding my appointment book web. So it downloaded a bunch of stuff. Well, let's make more progress. So
I'm sorry, is that fine?
yeah, I'll put it back up on the screen in a second.
But just need to verify after that.
Yeah.
You're saying you think it'll work if we go?
You need to blow away the old jar file, because I did upload one a couple of weeks ago, and it's probably after the start of class. So yeah, so in your home directory, and for those of you on Windows, it's your Windows home directory, a file called directory called .maven2/repository/edupdxcs410j. If you blow that away, that'll get rid of all the artifacts, all my artifacts, and that ought to be good enough. So let's give that a try.
In the home directory?
Yeah, /. Sorry, let me put that at the top of the screen so you can see more easily.
Oh, the .m2.
That worked for me.
Okay, that worked for you? Okay. So right, if it's not compiling because it's like, oh, I'm trying to call something that takes a map, and there's something that takes a map. That's why. Sorry about that.
So we run the remove, and then what do we do?
And then now you should be able to build your Maven. So go back and now you do your Maven clean verify or whatever, and that should work. Okay, now let's open up IntelliJ. Let's see here, I want to sync my IntelliJ. found a new project. Oh, before I listen to the code, let's look at what the application gives you. Okay. People having success with that? Is that working for people now? Okay. Getting there? Yeah. Yay. Okay. Say what? Oh, now Cohen's is having some problem. One thing that I did last week, I helped someone during office hours with that too. There is, there's a bug in the POM. So go to the pom.xml. Look for this Surefire plugin. So it's line 142.
Is the parent POM or the?
Nope, the Cohen's POM.
Oh.
And sorry, this is something that, again, I changed something in the parent POM and it was fine for like all the other projects except for the cones. And so then you'll need to add this configuration XML. And actually, I'll just put this into Slack so it's easier to see. In the cones, if you're having a problem with the Maven build for the cones, you will need to add this configuration in your pom.xml. Why? There. Oops. So it's all the way down the bottom. So just add the configuration part. And I think that'll fix it. But basically, one of the things that I did is I changed all the Maven projects to say, hey, listen, fail if you don't have, if you have no automated tests. There was a bug in something, actually, well, in one of the archetypes, I think, where I had something misconfigured or I'd updated a plugin and it wasn't running the tests anymore. And I didn't even realize it was silently passing with like 0 tests. Like, that's wrong. If there aren't any tests, it ought to fail. Well, I forgot to realize that, oh yeah, the cones don't have any unit tests. They have the cones. There's something different. So I think I created a GitHub issue to fix this. I just haven't implemented it yet. Because I've been learning about Android. But anyway, I'll talk about that at the end of class. Yep. Yep, it's down here, like line 142. So you probably have just the artifact. You need to add this configuration.
I don't have it though.
I didn't either.
Oh, I guess you need to add the whole thing then. Okay. Just add the plugin configuration.
Will it always fail if you don't have that?
Sorry, what?
Will it always fail if you don't have that?
I think so, because unless you add unit tests, it'll always fail. But it's not failing for you?
No.
When you run it from the top directory, will it fail? I think you're running it from the top level directory, right? Or are you CDing into the cone directory and running Maven, or are you running it from the top level directory?
When I just failed
Yeah.
in the top level.
Yeah, so I think it's the top level directory is when it fails. And that's because... Oh, sorry. I put it in Slack. Look in the Cohen's channel. Yeah, sorry. What? Ah, man. Yeah, right. It's like, I've been and don't worry, it's full of really cute cat pictures. So no, it's XML, even cuter, right? No, sorry. By the way, I'm working on very little sleep, so I'm just gonna pass out at some point, and when that happens, just like quietly leave. Yeah, just don't wake me up.
Which one is that?
The cones pom.xml, and then anywhere inside the plugins section. So like down here. Sorry about that. Yeah. That's something I'll fix for future terms, but since you've already created your projects, you have to do it as a one-off. Alternatively, you can just cd into the cones directory and it should be fine. So if you just run it from the cones directory, it'll be okay. Oh. Does anybody still need the XML up here? Because I was going to change screens to something different. Oh, okay. So check this out.
Can you, so for context,
yeah.
doing like large project management without Java or without Maven
Yep.
is so much worse that it's worth doing this with Maven?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, well, I mean, you tell me. Okay, how would you do project 1 without Maven?
Just build it.
Build it with, okay, build what? What's in project 1? You've got your source code. How about your tests? Okay, and then in order to run your tests, you want to leverage JUnit, right? Because JUnit not only gives you like all of the code for the API, but it also gives you something that runs it and then formats the output. Okay, you know, and okay, if let's say you want to share the project with someone else, now we're getting a little bit more complex. They have to follow the same build procedure, which means you need to document your build procedure. And boy, you really want to make sure that it probably is the same. So then you're probably writing a script to run it. And oh wait, you're on a Mac, but they're on Windows. Then you got to write. So the answer is yes. And this is sort of like one of those, you know, one of those things that. And this is why it's advanced programming, right? So in CS 101, yes, you can write hello world, and yeah, it doesn't need to be in a package, and okay, what you're really focusing on is language syntax, right? That's simple, and that's fine, that's fit the purpose, because what they're teaching you is like how to program. Well, you know, in here, we're learning how to build software, and things more complex. Now, you know, you won't be able to answer this question now, but by the time you're done with Project 4, I hope you appreciate the fact that like Maven will do things like go off and download the web server and put it in the right place and start it up and deploy the web application to the right thing at a certain, you know, very rapidly, especially with Java. If you want to be doing interesting things, there's a lot of heavy lifting that needs to be done. And yes, there's a lot of magic in Maven, and yes, there's like, you know, here again, this isn't a class in Maven. So one of the things I've kind of learned is like, okay, I need to give you enough information to use the tool, but every once in a while there's something like this. It's just like, what the hell is all that? And I just got to be like, copy the XML. You know, we don't want to be here until 3 in the morning as I explain to you the nuances of all this stuff. However, if you go and look up what the Maven Surefire plugin is, you might learn something, right? And that's the thing that controls all the unit tests and stuff. So yeah. And you know, for those of you like that are taking another class where you're implementing stuff in Java, I've talked with a number of you that are in the Agile class, and it's like, okay, great, you know, hopefully Maven, you know, might be causing you a little bit of heartache, but over time it's going to save you a lot of effort because you're just going to have one thing that works. Okay.
When it works.
When it works, when you can get it to work, yeah. And you can get it to work. It's well, it's just like any other tool, right? You got to learn how to use it, and you know. Yeah, there's always a barrier of entry, and it actually that's one of the interesting and then kind of a pain in the butt things about our profession, right? The tools that I used 20 plus years ago when I was in your seat are different now. The technology are different. The approaches that we take. I think the challenge for you, and the same challenge that I had when I was a student, is that it builds on everything that's come before it. So then you have to understand. It behooves you to understand why we have something like Maven. It behooves you to understand why a rich IDE is better than trying to grep your way around things using VI for everything, as opposed to just editing a little file or gripping through a log file or something like that. And so that's sort of the while you get the benefit of the 70 years of computing that's come before you. There's a lot that you need to you need to see, you need to understand to have the context to then work, understand why things are the way they are today. Which is actually kind of relevant for your Project 4 because this is all about HTTP, which is all about like the foundations of how the web and the internet work.
Which POM?
The Cones POM. So the POMs of XML in the Cones project, yeah. And actually, let me go find the. Let me just go get the source code. Real quick, let's see here. That's the Android one. That's the. And actually, yeah, let me. Summer 2019. Let me just go find the commit so that it'll be super easy. Let's see here. Oh, I added it last week. So let's see here. Last week would have been the 10th. Oh, bother. So let's, sorry, let me go find it. In the cones, and the palm, and where is annotate claim? Let's find that. Oh, there it is. Adjust the palm. Here's the, okay, so here is the commit where I added that, and so then you can, this will tell you exactly, here's the commit where I added this code. Do the same in your code base. Nice. See, this is the neat thing about GitHub, right? I can just say, hey, go, oh yeah, go make these changes. And it all works. Okay. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to show off, because I'm so proud of myself, is I think it'll work. I know, right? Travis. Yay. So remember what Travis is? This is the continuous integration tool that we use. So earlier in class, 13 minutes ago, I added Project 4, and now Project 4 is being built by Travis. So I just pushed it to the source code. So it'll go through and it just went and ran all my code, and it's green, so I know that it passed. So even though it was working locally on my machine, now that I know it works in a clean room environment. And as I push more things to GitHub, it'll just run in the background, and it'll send me an email if something fails. Super fun. Okay. I want to show you a couple of things on the command line. They'll take a break. They'll come back and start looking at the source code. Okay. So there are. So I've got my web application. Okay. We're back to the assignment. There are two things that are created in this project for this in this Maven project for this assignment. One is the command line program, like we've seen before, and the other one is the web server. Okay, we'll look at what code is in the web server, but I'll show you what the web server does. There is an open, so Java has a standard for defining an API, this servlet API, which is what implements the guts of a web application. It's the thing that responds to HTTP requests. There are a couple of what are called web containers, which are basically web servers that know how to run these standards compliant Java applications. One of those web containers is something called Jetty. So you can go look it up. It's an open source project. And they have a Maven plugin for Jetty that will go off and download all the code for the web application for you and start it up and deploy your web application. Sorry. Download the web container, start everything up, and deploy your web application to it. So when you say Maven Jetty run, oops, and you can say Maven W Jetty run. Oops, I wanted to run that in the background. This will go, and it will build your web application. It'll start up Jetty, and it will deploy your web application to it. And I know it's running because I can do the following. I'll just open up a new browser tab. And so if I go to localhost 8080, what was that?
It's erroring because it says it can't find the plugin.
No.
Can't find no plugin found for prefix Jetty in the current project in the plugin groups.
Which directory are you in?
In the top level directory.
Go into the app. Yep. Thank you. Good. So yes, sorry. Yeah, I CD'd. I'm in the appointment book web directory.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. You know what? Sorry. Here's what I'll do. I'll do, and then you'll do, or you'll try and tell me what I screwed up. So okay. Does everybody have this, or does enough people have this? Okay.
Can you explain to me why it would tell me that my permission is denied if I try to run it with the wrapper but not the regular Maven?
Because the wrapper isn't executable. You got to do the chmod plus x. Yeah, it's funny that it says permission denied when it. Well, I suppose it doesn't have the executable permission, so I guess it says permission denied. Okay, so is everybody seeing this Jetty start? You're not. Yes, or you have a question? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Let me just. I'll stop it and do it again. Okay. So yeah, Jetty : run. Yep.
Yeah, so I guess you have to do it every single I mean, it works with the value that side. So
Okay. So here I'm running Maven, and this has started up the web server. Notice that it didn't return yet, right? I don't have a command prompt. I don't have a command prompt because the program is still running. So what I'll do is I'll create another window, and I'll make it big. And hopefully I'll get the same size, otherwise it'll look super awkward. I'll do that. Let's move this over here. I'll go to my Portland State Java Summer 2019. I'll go into the, okay, so I'm in that same directory again. And oh, actually, before I do that, so I've got this web server running. And the way I know it's running is that when I go to localhost 8080, I get something, right? And it's saying, hey, 404 not found. But it's saying, hey, listen, you got something called an appointment book. And oh, look, I run my appointment book. And I have it configured to send me back this little HTML file. So the archetype, the project that you all start with, is an example project that lets you experiment with REST calls. It implements a simple dictionary application, meaning that you can have a word and a definition. And what you can do is you can add to this dictionary via the REST API, and then there's a command line tool that uses that REST API. So the intent here is that it gives you sort of the pieces, and it has the Maven project so that everything works together, so that what you're focusing on in the assignment is implementing the logic and not trying to fight Maven, not trying to fight Jetty, not trying to fight the servlet or whatever. There's enough of a scaffolding so that you can focus on writing Java code and not trying to fight configuration. Okay, so now the program, so now the it's running. This is a little HTML form that I wrote, and so like I can list all the key value pairs. There aren't any. There are no words in the dictionary yet, so I can go back. And I can create a new one, so like a baloo is a bear. Oops. Baloo is a bear. I'll make that bigger so you can see it. Oops, I'm gonna word it. Oh, I screwed something up. Doesn't it like? Key value. Oh, key value isn't right. So I have, sorry, I'm just going to go real faster while I fix this. Oh, that's a bummer. Servlet. Word and definition are what they're called. The key should be word. Huh, that's interesting. Why did my... Huh.
You're modifying the POM for the...
I'm modifying the index.html. Sorry,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know. I'm gonna let me fix this, and then I'll. Maybe I should do this before the break. Sorry. Maybe I should have done it before class. But Android. Anyway, and then this is probably wrong too. Huh. Okay, so I / appointments. That's probably right.
Should we be making these changes as well?
You should, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to post the once I get it working, then I will commit it and I'll post the link. So stop Jetty, run it again. This will. Oh, I think this will work.
Why did you change it?
Because I'm posting. I have the wrong parameters. I changed the servlet to handle different parameter names. I forgot to update the form. And so what it's trying to do is it's trying to post to that URL with the wrong parameters. Let's try this again. And actually, instead of key value pair, no. I'll say word definition. It used to be a key value pair, and let's here list definition for word. List all word definition pairs. Man, I feel bad about that. Oh, and by the way, the index.html is not part of your assignment, but it's probably easier to understand, or at least to start with the web application by using the web, because we're all used to that. We're all used to HTML. We'll see when we start looking at code that there's a whole bunch of stuff behind the scenes that is code. Okay, good. Got those changes. So now a baloo is a bear. Better. Okay, so now what I did is I submitted the form. This then did an HTTP post to my web container, to my servlet, and then it stored it there in the application. Now if I go back and look for the word baloo, get the definition for it, it's a different URL. Look at the URL. I hope you can read that. It says, okay, appointment book / appointments, and then there's a query. Question mark word equals a baloo, and it says, oh yeah, a baloo is a bear. And then a doe is a deer. We'll create another one. Now when we list all of the word definitions, we see that the dictionary on the server contains 2 words. A baloo is a bear, and a doe is a deer. Oh, I spelled it wrong, D-E-A-R. I'm tired. Okay, so what are we doing? We're using an HTML form to interact with our web server. So that's one way to interact with the web server. The other way to interact with the web server is through the command line. So there's a command line application. Oops. Appointment book .jar. This is a very simple one, so it's not as interesting as yours. But it does tell you some that it needs some things. So the first argument is the host. So we're going to run it on localhost. Right, same thing as the URL here, localhost and port 8080. I'm sorry, I went through this really quick. Do you guys know what a port is? What is a port?
It's like a socket door. It's an abstraction of like a virtual door that you.
Right, it's a hole in the back of your machine through which data can pass. Think about it that way. Right? So, well, it is, right? So the whole idea is that, right, you plug into the internet. No, you don't. You connect to a Wi-Fi. But here again, all this networking, was in the, for realsies started in the mid-'80s, right? And so the whole idea is that you had all these machines that were talking to each other. They were plugged in to a network. And, I mean, this is, of course, a networking, but the way things work is that there are wires that are all connected to each other, and there are devices like hubs that will route all the requests. But when you make a request, you need to, it's like writing a letter, right? You got to put the address of where it's going. And so then, oh yeah, there's another thing. So imagine it's like you're sending a letter to people. Oh, you kids don't send letters anymore. But imagine if you did. So it's like your grandma sending you a postcard, right? And let's say you live in an apartment. And so like the apartment building has an address, but you live in apartment 12C or whatever. Well, think of it like localhost is like the address of your apartment building, and then 8080 is like the 12C. It's one particular apartment in the apartment complex, or on a computer, it's one particular, here again, conceptual hole in the back of your computer through which data can flow. And what this allows you to do is have multiple programs that are listening on different ports all in the same server. And so when you communicate with between two processes, between two programs, you say, well, here's which machine, and oh yeah, here's which port on that machine I want to communicate over. And then different protocols, different standard protocols have different standard ports. So HTTP, their standard port is 80. HTTPS is 443. There are standard ports for email, standard ports for Active Directory. All sorts of things have ports. But the whole idea is that you by default you will run a certain service on a certain port, and that's how people know how to communicate with that service. For Jetty and for Java applications, sort of the default port is 8080. They don't want to use 80 because 80 is reserved, especially like on Linux machines and stuff like that. You can't use it because only privileged processes can, and so they use a higher number port, which is available to all applications. Oh, good. I see the nod of like, please finish because we can take a break. Yeah, I hear that. But one more thing I want to show you.
What was the command for the jar to run it this way?
Same as the jar?
No, sorry. I just wanted to see what you had written.
Okay. Oh, gosh, that's really hard to see because it's at the bottom of the screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make my, there you go. Now let's move it up a little bit so everybody can see. Sorry about that. Okay, so the first parameter is localhost. The second is the port. Now let's see here. Ray, drop of golden sun.
This isn't going to work for us unless we've changed the HTML, or it will still just treat it.
The command line has nothing to do with the HTML. If you want to use the form, you got to change the HTML. So so that's your nice way of saying, please check in the HTML so I can see what the hell you did. I will do that. Okay. Updated HTML file to updated HTML file to use the expected URL post parameters. Actually, I'll just post it if we get parameters. So I'm going to push that off to. GitHub, and now I'm going to go to Slack. I'm going to create a channel for Project 4. Discussion about Project 4. I am going to post in general. Hey everybody, I created a new channel for Project 4. Don't forget to subscribe. Oh, can I make that little heart icon thing like that? Or however that works. My kids watch YouTube. 61 people. I am so sure. Okay, good deal. Here, everybody joins. Nice, Aiden. Okay. Okay. So here's the change. Let's move this up so everybody can see it. Here's the change to get the index.html file working with the servlet. Nope. Yeah, this is it. You'll want to apply it to your own projects. Sorry about that. Okay. Fixing bugs. It's software, right? So meanwhile, back over here in the command line. So I'm going to run the command line tool over here. And it said define Ray as drop of golden sun. Okay. So what did that do? That went and it posted to the server, hey, create this new entry in the dictionary. So now if I go back over to here, and if I reload this, if I look at all the appointments, there it is. So what happened here? I've got, over here, I'm running Jetty. Jetty is doing its thing. It's the web server, right? It's hanging out. It's responding to these HTTP requests. The HTTP requests can come from the browser, either by hitting the URL. It can come from the HTML form, or the HTTP requests can come from the command line. So here again, so basically what I've got is there are multiple clients to the web server. And the thing about this is the web server doesn't care what the client is, as long as it speaks its language, as long as it uses HTTP, as long as it's following the rules of the application. It doesn't care if that HTTP request is coming from a command line, from a browser, from a form, from another application, all that kind of stuff. And so now we can also use the command line tool to get all of the contents of the dictionary. So this is fundamentally what your application is going to do. You're going to be running a web server that is going to hold appointment books, and you're going to use a command line tool to interact with it. Oh, but by the way, you can also use the browser to interact with it also. So you can hit this URL, like the appointment book URL. Your servlet doesn't know. Oh, actually, we don't want that. We want appointment book / appointments. The server doesn't really care that it's coming from a web browser and not coming from the command line. It just says, "Oh, okay, you're doing a get on that URL. Okay, well, when I receive the request for a get, here's what I said in response. I send the contents of the dictionary." So that from the outside is what your project 4 is going to do. Let's take a break, and when we come back, let's start taking a look on the inside to see what happens there.